Today's story seems to be emotional, and you will all sympathize with the little girl who begs for help. But wait, before we start, please consider subscribing to our channel, Storyweaver, and hit that like button if you like this video. So, let's dive in. Jonathan was working his usual bus route when a little girl hopped on the bus, desperately asking for help. He was a bit shocked, but weird things happened almost every day on the bus, and as Jonathan didn't have time to help as he had to keep working, he dismissed her cries for help, so the girl went away. But when Jonathan got home that night, something shocking happened. What follows is an unexpected turn of events that changes everything. Jonathan had been driving for hours and hours when he arrived at a bus stop in New Jersey. Suddenly, a little girl jumped on his bus and she was desperately asking for help. "Please, someone, please, help me, mother," the little girl yelled, and Jonathan was startled. He frowned at the girl and asked, "What?" "My mom needs help. Please help me," the little girl begged and begged. Jonathan then looked around the bus. Other passengers were looking at the girl, somewhat worried, but others were ignoring her completely. He was under pressure to keep driving. "Listen, girl, I don't have time to help you. Call 911, he finally said to the kid who was crying at that point. "Please, my mom," the girl insisted, her tears falling freely from her eyes. Finally, Jonathan had no patience anymore, so he got up from his driver's seat and chased the little girl out of his bus. "I'm sorry, but I need to keep going. You can call 911. Just ask someone for a phone," he said in a harsh tone as he got her out of the bus. "There's no one around," the little girl protested, and her big wet eyes were heartbreaking. That night, by the way, he arrived home and greeted his wife Caroline as he walked through the door. "Darling, I'm home," he called out. "Oh, honey, thank God you're here. We've had the craziest day. I wanted to call you, but I didn't want to interrupt your work," she told him after kissing him. But then Jonathan froze. The little girl from earlier was sitting on his living room couch and staring at him with her big eyes. "Who is that? What is she doing here?" he asked his wife, but Caroline didn't recognize her husband's demeanor or shock. "That's what I have to tell you. I was walking back home when I saw this girl Susie crying for help. I had to do something. She wanted to borrow my phone to call 911. Then she took me with her a few steps away, and there was her mom on the side of the road, completely unconscious. Can you believe it? I called 911 myself," Caroline explained. "Susie was so brave to ask around for help." Jonathan felt horrible at that moment, realizing that the little girl had begged him for help for her mother, and he had turned her away so easily. "What else happened?" he asked, gulping and sitting opposite Susie on the other couch. Caroline sat by the girl and hugged her dearly. "Well, we rode the ambulance to the hospitals. The doctor said that Susie's mom suffered a stroke and they took her to surgery immediately. It was apparently pretty tricky, and one of the nurses thanked me for acting so quickly," his wife continued. "But honestly, the bravest and smartest person here is Susie." Caroline wore a warm smile as she embraced the little girl tightly with one arm. "You did an amazing job, Susie. You saved your mom. She's going to be just fine," she praised. Jonathan, still grappling with shame, had a question. "But why are you here? Shouldn't you be at the hospital?" "They strictly enforce visiting hours, so I offered to take Susie home. I didn't want her to be alone, so I invited her over. Thankfully, she said yes," Caroline replied, beaming with pride at the girl. Jonathan had to come clean to his wife. "Can we talk in private for a moment?" he said. Of course, she agreed, and they went to their bedroom to talk. Caroline was furious by the end of their discussion. "How could you do that? Susie's mother could have died." "I know. I'm so ashamed of myself. What can I do?" he elaborated, holding his head. "You need to apologize to that little girl right now," Caroline demanded, pointing to the door. Jonathan knew it was the right thing to do, so he followed her instructions. "Susie, do you remember me?" he asked as he sat down next to her. Susie looked up at him with her big eyes and slowly nodded. "I want to apologize to you, Susie. I'm extremely sorry for my actions earlier today. I should have gotten off the bus and helped you immediately. Can you forgive me, please?" he pleaded. Susie smiled slowly and nodded again. "Yes," she replied quietly. "Thank you so much," he said emotionally, and the little girl hugged him. Perhaps Susie had forgiven him quickly because her mother was doing well, thanks to Caroline's actions. The next day, they visited Susie's mother and continued to do so until she was released from the hospital. The two families eventually became close friends. Meanwhile, Jonathan went out of his way to help people. He learned from this experience and helped especially those who asked for it. He would never make that terrible mistake again. He could only thank God that his wife was there to help save Susie's mother. Well, that's about that for this story. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching.